Hi, engineers! Have you ever looked at a for loop and thought, okay, I get how it works, but why do interviewers still love this thing so much? Why not just use forEach or while every single time? If that's ever crossed your mind, stick around. Today, we're doing a relaxed deep dive into the classic JavaScript for loop. We'll walk through exactly how it works. When it's the smartest choice and when it's not. Why do interviewers keep asking about it? And how can you confidently explain its advantages right in the middle of a live coding interview? By the end, you'll have 4 practical examples you can run yourself, plus the exact mental model and talking points that make interviewers think, this person really understands loops. Let's start with the big picture, the mental model that makes for loops feel natural. A for loop packs 3 decisions into one clean line. Where do I start? When do I stop? And how do I move forward each time? That single line with the start, the condition, and the step is super powerful because everything stays visible right there in the header. You instantly see the bounds, the direction, and how big each jump is. That clarity is perfect when you need to reason about performance, debug fast, or explain your thinking out loud, which is pretty much every interview. And because all the control lives in one place, for loops work beautifully with break and continue, with custom steps like counting backwards or skipping items, and especially when you need the index. Needing the position in the array, not just the value, is where for usually wins. Alright, let's look at 4 everyday examples that show exactly when for loop shines. Example 1. Classic forward pass with index. So let's set up our first example input so we can see it clearly. We create a variable named nums and set it to the array of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We want to print each number one by one. So we start a for loop. We declare a variable named I and set it to 0. The stop rule is e is less than num's length. The update is increase I by 1 after each round. Inside the loop, we write a console log of nums at I. Let's run our code. When we look in the terminal, we should see 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5, each printed on its own line. So why pick 4 here? We know the exact length ahead of time. We're using the index even if just to read the value, and the pattern stays super clear. forEach would work too, but you lose easy access to the index unless you add extra parameters. Interviewers notice when you pick the longer way for no real reason. Here is the next example. Example 2, custom step, every second element. Now let's set up the next example. We create a variable named nums and set it to the array of 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. We create a variable named sum and set it to 0. We want the sum of every other number, starting from the first one, so we start a for loop. We declare a variable named I and set it to 0. The stop rule is I is less than num's length. The update is increase I by 2 after each round. Inside the loop, we set sum to sum plus nums at I. After the loop finishes, we write console log of sum. Let's run our code. When we look in the terminal, we should see 90. This is where for loop really stands out. The step lives right in the header, increase I by 2. You could do it with forEach and check if the index is even, but that adds extra logic inside the loop. The for version stays cleaner and shows you know exactly what you're iterating over. Interviewers love seeing that kind of control. Example 3. Building a new array while keeping order. Now let's prepare our third example. We create a variable named nums and set it to the array of 2, 3, and 4. We create an empty array and name it squares. We want to build a new array with the squares of each number, so we start a for loop. We declare a variable named I and set it to 0. The stop rule is I is less than num's length. The update is increase I by 1 after each round. Inside the loop, we write squares.push of nums at I multiplied by nums at I. After the loop, we write a console log of squares. Now let's run our code. When we look in the terminal, we should see 4, 9, and 16 inside square brackets. Index access, known bounds, building something new. This is classic for loop territory. Yes, the map is shorter and what you'd use in real life, but when the interviewer says no higher order functions, or show me the manual way, this is exactly what they want. You can say I chose 4 because I wanted full control over the iteration and easy index access. Example 4, early exit with a break. Now let's set up the final example. We create a variable named nums and set it to the array of 3, 7, 2, 9, and 5. We create a variable named threshold and set it to 6. We create a variable named firstover. We want the first number bigger than 6. So we start a for loop. We declare a variable named I and set it to 0. The stop rule is I is less than num's length. The update is increase I by 1 after each round. Inside the loop, we create an if statement. The condition is that nums at I is greater than the threshold. Inside the if block, we set firstover to nums at I and then we write break. After the loop, we write a console log of firstover. Let's run our code. When we look in the terminal, we should see 7. Break here is perfect, clean early exit, no extra flags or complicated logic. Modern JavaScript has find, but interviewers often want the manual version to see how you handle control flow. You can say, for loop lets me stop the moment I find what I need, no extra work. Quick recap, reach for a for loop when you need the index. When you know the bounds upfront and want them visible in one line, when you want a custom step like counting down or skipping items, or when you're likely to use break or continue. And if they ask why for loop instead of forEach or map or while, try this. I chose for because I need the index. The bounds are known and fixed, and the step is clear right in the header. This gives me clean O of n time and almost no extra space unless I'm building a new array on purpose. Common traps to avoid so you don't lose points. Off by 1, always use I less than length, never less than or equal. Forgetting to increase I, that's an infinite loop nightmare. Heavy work inside, pull constants out before the loop. And mutating the array you're looping over, only do it if you really know what happens. There you go, the classic for loop demystified. Run these examples yourself, play with the steps, add breaks, mess things up on purpose, and get comfortable. Next time an interviewer says loop over this array without higher order functions, you'll write clean code and explain exactly why you picked the for loop. Which loop do you reach for most often and why? Drop it in the comments, I read everyone. See you in the next one. Now you're 1% smarter. The cheat code is consistency, so keep boosting your brain. Make it your daily routine, and you will nail your next interview. Same rhythm tomorrow. At Code Crack Interviews.